so we might be dead. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Everything hurts. Grossi, and today we are going to break down the Green Bay Packers' loss to the Tennessee Titans 27-17 on Thursday Night Football, and this may be the end of the Green Bay Packers season. While they are not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, it is going to be very difficult for them to make it at 4-7. And while they did just lose to an AFC team, which is not the worst thing in the world, it is going to be an uphill battle. And I want to talk about today why, we can hope for scenarios to break and teams to collapse, but it starts with the Green Bay Packers putting together 4 quarters of play. And if they've shown anything this season, it's that they have not been able to do that consistently from a week-to-week basis. And that truly is the most frustrating thing here, sitting here on Thursday night, because you can see the potential in this team. They can be good. They can put up a lot of points, and they just don't. When the defense plays well, the offense fails. When the offense plays well, the defense fails. It looks like a tale of two teams, and that completely shifts from quarter to quarter. It's not even a week-by-week thing anymore. It's, the defense showed up in the first quarter, but the offense didn't, and vice versa. And it just keeps on going back and forth and back and forth. The Packers' offense was shut out for 2 quarters, but then at the end, the defense started playing well. They got a key interception, and then they got a 3-and-out with a big-time sack, and it's just so frustrating to watch because the potential is there. And it just goes back to all the things that are wrong with the Green Bay Packers right now. While you have stars and studs like Christian Watson who are starting to emerge, the guy has 5 touchdowns within 5 days, which is pretty damn good, showing that he can be a wide receiver 1. Aaron Rodgers is missing throws. The O-line is struggling to block. On top of that, wide receivers aren't getting open. On top of that, Joe Barry is not doing a good job. Players aren't executing. And it's so many different issues that are not just solved with, just put Jordan Love in or just run the ball more. There's so many things wrong with the Green Bay Packers right now, and it's likely going to cost them this season. And honestly, I just have more questions as to what comes after this season. What happens to Aaron Rodgers? What happens to guys like Adrian Amos? What the hell happens with guys like Darnell Savage? There's so many questions, and the Green Bay Packers still have 6 games left to go. When the Minnesota Vikings can lock up the division in week 12, it's a problem. And that's nothing against the Vikings, while I hate them with all of my being. The Green Bay Packers, they are not a team that can even compete for this division right now, just because of the way that they've been playing on a week-to-week basis. And that is why I am very frustrated right now. Taking a look at this game, Rodgers, 24 for 39, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, got sacked once, missed some blatant throws, and there was some miscommunication. There was times where wide receivers were just not open, and Rodgers was trying to do the best that he possibly could to kind of scheme guys open on the fly. He did with Christian Watson on that free play, which was absolutely phenomenal, and Watson just jumped up and got it. But wide receivers weren't getting open, and Rodgers, when they were open, was sometimes just missing them blatantly. So that was a problem. The run game, non-existent tonight against a very good run defense of the Tennessee Titans. We knew this going into it. Between Jones and Dillon, got 18 carries. Jones 12 for 40, Dillon 6 for 13. Nothing really doing there. It did not help the fact that Big Jeffrey Simmons was back on the defensive line for the Tennessee Titans, and they had nothing. Cobb, who came off of IR, made a pretty big impact, also recovered a fumble that Aaron Jones had, but went 6 for 73. He was their leading receiver. Lazard, 5 for 57, and Watson, 4 for 48 with 2 touchdowns. Guy has been a stud these past 2 games, really had his coming out party on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, continued that on Thursday night. And if there's anything to pull from this season, and I know there were a lot of fans that Watson was a bust, he's injured, he can't catch the ball, patience. And here we are in week 11, and it looks like in these 2 games, Watson has emerged as a wide receiver 1 talent. And I don't want to go singing his praises just yet, but in these past 2 games, he has looked really, really solid and has provided a spark for this offense. It's only a shame that we can't give him the ball almost every single time. Meanwhile, the defense, oh God, so frustrating. Besides the zone coverage that Joe Barry continues to call. It is just frustrating to see the lack of pass rush. Yes, we did get 3 sacks tonight, but Ryan Tannehill looked great against our defense. Guys were wide open, big plays being caught downfield, and this is against an offense who has struggled. To put it this way, the Tennessee Titans, who have a great red zone offense, but don't really put a lot of points on the board, had their highest scoring game this week against our defense. And listen, we're missing Rashawn Gary, Devondre Campbell, Eric Stokes, but it's kind of just embarrassing to watch this defense at times. And then there's times where they're great. Rasul Douglas gets a key pick. They get sacks. They get 3 and outs. And unfortunately, it goes back to our offense, who then decides to crap the bed. And that's what I mean. You just cannot have both sides of the ball playing in unison, playing as a team, and it's just frustrating. Tannehill had a very efficient night, 22 for 27, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 1 interception. Derrick Henry, 28 carries, 87 yards, a touchdown, also threw for a touchdown as well. Also caught 2 passes for 45 yards. Treylon Burks, 7 catches, 111 yards. Robert Woods, 6 for 69. And the Titans didn't do anything fancy. They dominated that second quarter, just giving the ball to Derrick Henry and just kept converting and converting and converting on 3rd and short, 3rd and short, 4th and short. And at the very end, the defense, after a 10-minute drive, actually stopped them, but then the offense couldn't do anything. That first half was basically dominated by the Titans for time of possession. The Packers could not do anything. They had less than 100 yards in the first half, and their struggles didn't get too much better, though they were able to put up points in the 3rd quarter. They were then shut out in the 4th when the defense was actually performing well. And just to put it in perspective, Tennessee had 408 total yards while the Packers had 271. The Packers also had 5 penalties, and that has been a story this season. Every single time they get a holding call, it's nearly impossible for this offense to overcome those 10 yards, and that's very frustrating. So where does this leave us? Well, the Packers are 4-7 right now, and they're going to Philadelphia a week from Sunday on Sunday Night Football if that game doesn't get flexed out. Yes, the Eagles did lose to the Commanders, but again, the Packers are not doing themselves any favors. They're already behind the Commanders. They're already behind the Giants, the Cowboys, and they lost to the Commanders and the Giants. So quite frankly, they just need to win football games. And as I was saying in the beginning of this episode, it really doesn't matter what teams collapse or have flukes or choke it away. The Packers have not shown that they can play consistent football from a week-to-week basis. So it really doesn't matter if the Packers can't win football games. And they have some tough games left on the schedule. They have the Dolphins, they have the Eagles, they have the Vikings. Hell, they're probably going to struggle with teams like the Bears and the Lions. They have 6 games left, and I think every single one of them is going to be a battle. But the problem is you just never know which Packers team is going to show up. And again, it's not just a singular issue. There's nuance. It's the floor. It's the lack of running. It's Rodgers. It's the wide receivers not getting open. It's Joe Barry. It's players on the defense not executing. It's injuries. It's penalties. It's all of these things. And they just keep on coming and biting us in the ass. And guess what, folks? We're not going to be able to win football games if we keep on shooting ourselves in the foot. So listen, there's a lot of questions, and the Packers have 6 games to try and figure something out to see what kind of identity this team can have, if any, for this season. Because right now, the only identity this team has is inconsistency. And that's why we're sitting at 4-7. Before we get out of here, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to some brand new patrons and YouTube members. On the Patreon side of things, we have Kama and Bill Hartnett. A big shout out and thank you to you. And over on the YouTube side of things, joining the Grossi Posse Plus, we have Rocco Ragland, we have Neko Camp, we have Mr. Zora, we have Hoffs and Sags, we have Elfman, we have Bennett Durham Klein, we have Allison Tuckwab, and we have Jammy. A big shout out and thank you to you all. And a big shout out to Kyle, not only donating some money on the stream, but also matching it to his local charity in Minneapolis. So a big shout out and thank you to you all. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you feel about this? The Packers aren't mathematically eliminated, but it's just frustrating to watch this team struggle, and it's just disappointment. That's kind of the feeling that I'm left with right now. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, but it's a tough one to swallow, and Philadelphia's next. Let me know. You guys tell me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.